Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Trails Radio Show. Thank you for joining us today. Join me and my special guest, writer Dr. W. Michael Farmer. Thank you, and join us in a minute. Okay, Michael, my first question to you is, how did your career as a writer begin? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, as you may know, I have a PhD in physics, and so I've written a number of technical papers over the years, and I wound up living in Las Cruces, New Mexico for about 15 years doing research at White Sands Missile Range. And there's a big mystery in New Mexico about what happened to Albert Fountain and his little boy, Henry, who was a big-time lawyer helping ranchers in the Tularosa Basin. And one day they disappeared when they were coming back from a court meeting in Lincoln, and the claim was made that a rancher who was a Democrat and who had butted heads with Fountain, who was a Republican, had done away with Fountain and his little boy Henry. So I was always curious about that, and when I moved, remarried and moved to Virginia, I had just finished a couple of technical books summarizing just about all I knew about how electro-optical instruments see through the atmosphere, or what limits them. And I thought, well, I think I'll write a little story to see if I can't get some idea about what happened to the Fountains. There's a famous writer, probably one of the best in the 20th century, named Oakley Hall, who had written some westerns, and had said in the front of one, Warlock, which was really about the shootout at the OK Corral, that the business of fiction was to get to the truth and not necessarily the facts. And so in writing this, I had hoped to get to the truth behind what had happened to the Fountains. And I thought maybe if I really stretched it, I might be able to write 20,000 words, and it was really more for my benefit than anything else. Well, when I got through, I had about 180,000 words, and decided that I really enjoyed writing, and thought that if it was any good, then I would try to publish it as a novel. And a lady named Jan Arrington Walcott that I met in Albuquerque at a Tony Hillerman conference agreed to read it for me, and she was impressed with it and encouraged me to publish. And so I wound up trying to find an agent and was unsuccessful at that. And so I self-published that novel, and then which was called Hombrecito's War, and the next one, which was Hombrecito's Search, and it was just about as long, and it was about Henry's adventures in Mexico. In the first novel, I had assumed that he had managed to survive. He was only 8 years old, and the reason that he had survived was because a Mescalero Apache scout had seen the whole business with his father being ambushed and basically saved him from freezing to death and helped raise him with an old curmudgeon that lived up in the mountains there in the Oregons near Las Cruces. And so after I self-published the second one, I did a novel about based on the trial of the man accused of murdering the Fountains. His name was Oliver Lee, and one of his associates, a man named James Gilliland. And that trial was in 1899, and it was considered by many the trial of the century. And after I got that written, a small press in Sierra Vista, Arizona, gave me a contract for it, and wound up republishing both of the books that I had published as self-published, and I've been writing steadily ever since.
Wonderful. Are you working on any books at the moment? Do you have any upcoming projects?
Well, I've the COVID-19 disaster really put a kink in my book production. I usually write about one a year, and a major publisher who was a few years ago was awarded as being the best publisher of Westerns in the country, and their primary market is libraries. It's 5-star. I had gotten a contract with them after the little publisher that I had in Sierra Vista went out of business. And I wrote 3 novels about the Apache scout that had saved the little boy Henry, and I got interested in the life of Geronimo, and in particular what happened to him after he surrendered, and he was a prisoner of war for 23 years. And actually became a astute businessman and was kind of a superstar of the day. And I wrote a book about that. I've just had the companion book, which is about the wars he went through the last 10 years before he surrendered, and that's called The Iliad of Geronimo. And I have one that's due to come out in November called Trini Come, which is about his captivity of Trinidad Verdun. It's based on a true story about a 12-year-old girl that was captured by Geronimo and his warriors about 8 miles northwest, on a ranch about 8 miles northwest of Nogales, Arizona. So that's due out in November, and I have 2 that are actually about the same character. A man named Chato, who was Geronimo's number 2 man in Segundo, and that begins when they jumped the reservation in 1881. During the years that followed, they became bitter enemies, and so I've written the story of Chato that kind of covers both sides of the fence about why he was Geronimo's enemy and why he's been deprecated, I think, unjustly for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be out in June, I think, of next year.
Okay.
And I'm just starting a book on what a lot of people think is another mystery, which is that there were a number of Apaches that disappeared into the Sierra Madre in Mexico after Geronimo surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
The Army liked to tell the president and the American people, well, that the Apache wars are over, when in fact they were still raiding in the United States as late as 1935, and they were hiding in Mexico. There were relatively few of them, and nobody seems to know where they were or how they managed to disappear after 1935. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out when it's out.
Yeah, I hope you will.
My next question is, what do you find is the most challenging part about writing, or the most difficult part?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess getting the plot and storyline straight, and using a minimum number of words to convey what I'm trying to tell the reader. That often takes a lot of thought, and it's one reason why it takes a while to write a good novel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, you have to keep it interesting, keep it real, because the readers will pick up on that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. What is your advice to people who want to get started in writing, who want to be a writer?
Well, you really have to enjoy it. I mean, people see books like those that Dan Brown put out, that were made into movies and what have you. But you really have to enjoy the writing to do it. And if you do, then stick with it and learn every time that you write a piece. Get better with it. You'll get better. But the only way that you're going to learn to write is not through books or going to conferences or what have you. It's actually doing the work of putting words on paper and making the thought that you're trying to convey clear. So I guess the bottom line there is simply stick with it, and you'll get to where you want to go eventually. But don't give up your day job, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and write what you know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you certainly don't want to write what you don't know. But just about everything that we're involved with, we really don't know fully. And when you write on a subject, you need to research it, and that's how you come to know it. I think it's not just how you lived or that kind of thing, but you really need to know the history on both sides. I learned, and I've written a lot about the Apaches, and I was very fortunate that one of the first books that I read about them was a book about their culture. It's called An Apache Lifeway by Morris Opler. And I suddenly realized after I read Opler's book that it was a lot easier to understand what the Apaches did and why they did it by knowing their cultural background.
Mm. Yeah, and you never stop learning. There's always room to learn.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find your books? Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, they're on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Most of the hardbound books that I have out, you can certainly get from any of the online bookstores or the brick and mortar stores. But the electronic versions of these books are just now starting to come out, and I think the first one will be out in June, and it's the Odyssey of Geronimo. So if you're after something in Kindle or Nook or something like that, then that's where it'll come from. I have a website that describes all my books and gives a little of my background, and that's WMichaelFarmer, all one word, .com.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you for letting me talk to you. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we were finally able to do it, and thank you very much.
Well, thanks for the call. I'm delighted to chat with you.
Thank you. And I'll send you a link to the interview when it's up so you can share it on Facebook and all that.
That'll be great. Thanks a lot, Trey.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So long.
And that was writer Dr. W. Michael Farmer. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, God bless.